On the morning of November 29th, 2012, I was sitting in my sofa in my family room, having some tea and starting my day off. And I was kind of tired, but I had one of those unusual sleeps that morning and that night. It's kind of like one of those nights where you get into bed and all of a sudden you're not there. It's like you fall into a darkness. It's like a total like death. It's hard to explain, but I have these times where I go to sleep and it's like I'm gone. It's like, wow, a real dark, deep, deep sleep. And then there's other times I'm totally sleepless. But when I get that dark sleep time, um, it brings about interesting things. So I'm sitting there on the couch, and my cell phone rings, and I answer it, and there's this woman's voice on there, and I have no clue who she is. And she asks, "Is this Reverend Bill?" And I go, "Yeah." And she started talking and going on about Joseph Corey, and I trying to think who Joseph Corey was. I had no clue. And she goes, "Well, he told me to thank you today." Um, I said, "He gave you my number?" He says, "Yeah, he gave me your business card, had your telephone number on there." And I said, "Okay." And he said he'd been talking to you all night long, and he wanted to thank you for talking him into surrendering to the police this morning. And I'm going, "What?" I had no clue what she was talking about. And she rattled on about this 17-hour siege and all the police that were there. I mean, there was a sheriff's department and all these other people, and he shot somebody and killed somebody, and it just all kind of went. I didn't know what she was talking about, so I just said, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'll pray for him," and she seemed to be happy with that answer. I didn't ask for her number, her name, or nothing. I figured it was a strange call, and I wanted to hang up, and I hung up and told my wife, I said, "What a strange thing! I'm getting credited with talking some guy into giving up to the police, some killer guy." Anyway, so I turn on the morning news, local news, and there's this big story about a Joseph Francis Corey, who was a Vietnam vet, 68 years old, and he got into some hard times financially, and they were foreclosing on his house, and they were also coming out to get his dogs off the property. And they sent out the county animal control person officer, and he was very despondent about his house, but he was also very despondent and angry about him wanting to take his dogs. And so when the officer came to his door, knock on the door, he fired some kind of weapon through the door and killed this poor officer. And so there's this dead guy laying on his porch, and that began this siege the day before. And it ended up with the Sacramento County Sheriff's Department, the Galt Police Department, the California Highway Patrol, two different SWAT teams, and they had paramedics and fire there, and everybody off at a distance. And this was a 17-hour siege. And I'm watching it on the news, and it talks about all this stuff that happened. I had no clue. I didn't even watch the news the night before. And apparently he came out about 5 o'clock in the morning and surrendered and told the police officers that Reverend Bill McDonald, me, unless there's another one out there, had talked to him all night and convinced him to turn himself in and not to have any more bloodshed, not to shoot anybody, and to give up peacefully. And so this woman was there when this happened, and she got the card, the number, and because he insisted that somebody call Reverend Bill to thank him. And so that's what this lady was doing, apparently. The funny thing about the whole thing was I was in this death-like, dark, deep sleep all morning in my bed. And this place was down the road about 10 miles from my house. Had no awareness of any of this taking place or happening. And yet this guy comes out. Now, realize he'd been up all night long. And he's in a heightened state of anxiety and fear and anger and all kinds of other things. Maybe he's hallucinating. Maybe he's talking to himself. But at some point in time, he had my business card with my telephone number and my name. So apparently I talked to him at some veterans event. Maybe he was suicidal or something, I don't know. But I gave him my card at one time for Spiritual Warriors Ministries. And he had this real, imaginary, or interdimensional talk with Reverend Bill, quote unquote, all night long that comforted him and kept him from shooting and firing his weapons at anyone else, and to end it peacefully. So that was the story, and that was kind of how all the pieces put together. And I really became interested in this guy, and I watched his updates in the newspaper on his trial and everything. Of course, he was guilty and ended up going to jail with a life sentence for murder. And it was a real shame because at 68 years old, he never had anything in his record negative. And up until they were taking his dogs away and foreclosing his house, he hadn't been a problem to anybody. He was very nonviolent. It's just everything was set off in motion. So I was thinking about this, and if this was just an isolated incident in my life where I woke up one morning and somebody phoned me or called me or I met him later on and told me a similar story, not maybe about giving themselves up to the police, but about being talked out of a suicide or being helped with their alcoholism or drug addiction or helping their marriage or just giving them good advice. I get this feedback from people more often than not. And it's at the point now where it's like, are all these people that are telling me this, are they hallucinating? Are they delusional? Are they all crazy? Is it their imagination? Are they liars? The only other possibility is something's happened on another level that not even I am unaware of. And somehow I am influencing or affecting their behavior when I'm in this deep, dark sleep. I can't explain it, but this happened, and to this day I send Joseph my love, my prayers, and I haven't given up on him. And so maybe someplace in my sleep, maybe he's listening to me now. The poor guy, just everything fell apart, and it was a real shame somebody lost their life because of it.